In every NBA season, there are always those big storylines, question marks, and uncertainties for how things are going to transpire. And like every season before it, this is no exception, with some of the biggest stories and questions that remain unanswered as the season begins. And with the season kicking off tomorrow with much anticipation after a wild offseason, let's talk about some of the biggest storylines and question marks from around the league. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribed, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. This NBA offseason wasn't short of any drama, between the Damian Lillard saga of requesting a trade, only wanting to go to one team and then getting traded to a different team, to the ongoing drama of James Harden and the Daryl Morey divorce, and a game of chicken to see who blinks on whether Morey will actually trade Harden or Harden being forced to play so he doesn't lose out on getting paid, to the NBA draft lottery and seeing who would win the Tank for Wemby sweepstakes after a season filled with tanking teams, Marcus Smart getting traded, Drew Holiday getting traded, the Warriors doing away with Jordan Poole, of course the unfortunate off-court issues with Kevin Porter Jr. and Miles Bridges, but you get it, a lot of transactions, a lot of drama, a lot of headlines, a lot of changes. But now the question is, how will some of this all play out going into the season? And I want to start with one of the bigger storylines heading into the year, and what's going to happen with James Harden. We all know Harden can still ball. Yeah, he's not the same player he used to be, and he's a headache to deal with, no loyalty whatsoever. And while I've never been a fan of his game, or just him as a player in general, but he's still an elite scorer and one of the better playmakers in the NBA. But for a player who is still playing at a high level, but he knows he only has a few good years left and a few good years to actually win a championship, will he really sit out and not play if the Sixers refuse to trade him? Harden has said he will never play for an organization that Daryl Morey is a part of. He's been missing practice, didn't play in preseason, and he's been getting fined and losing out on a lot of money because of it. But eventually you'd have to think it gets to a point where the dollars start stacking up. I can't keep doing this. And then he reluctantly starts playing, or maybe he does what he did in Houston when he wanted out and would play, but he showed up 30 pounds overweight and didn't play very well, like he just didn't care about the game. To the point where the Sixers say, okay, we've got to get rid of this guy, and they move him for less than what he's worth just to get him off their hands. But the bigger story around James Harden and that situation that isn't being talked about enough is, what does that mean for the future of the Sixers, more specifically Joel Embiid? Look, the Sixers know that even though they have one of the best players in the world, they're not good enough to make a deep run in the playoffs if they lose James Harden without getting another star in return. And this is what, the third season now in a row where the Sixers have had major offseason drama? If the Sixers mess this situation with James Harden up and they come out flat to start the year under new head coach Nick Nurse, it might just be the tipping point for Embiid where he says, yeah, enough is enough, I want out, I'm tired of all the drama, I'm tired of getting bounced early in the playoffs, I'm going to be turning 30 years old this season, I want to win a championship. And Embiid ends up requesting a trade. Like, this is a make or break year for the Sixers. Tobias Harris's contract is expiring, Harden, whether they keep him or not, his contract is expiring, Tyrese Maxey is going to be a restricted free agent going into next offseason, and this could very well be the last season before Joel Embiid loses his patience and looks to go elsewhere. A lot of uncertainty surrounding the Sixers. I'm very curious to see how this season unfolds for them and where it takes them for their future. The other big storyline or question mark is Damian Lillard on the Milwaukee Bucks. I think most people assume it's going to be successful because anytime you add a superstar to an already established superstar, the team is probably going to do pretty well. But what if they don't? What happens then? Because the biggest talk of the offseason before the Bucks made the trade for Lillard was, is Giannis gonna leave in 2025? He was hinting at leaving, or at least setting it up in a way where he was putting the Bucks on notice that, hey, if you don't make the right moves to build around me, then yeah, I'm going to be requesting a trade, or just going to leave when I become a free agent. But now that they made this blockbuster trade for Damian Lillard, when everyone thought that he was going to be going to Miami, a lot of people act like it's a foregone conclusion that the Bucks are going to be winning the title. And while I do think they are going to be title favorites, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league, let's not forget that this team is still pretty old. It's not like they got younger in trading for Dame. They got the Lopez brothers, who are both 35. Chris Middleton is starting to get up there. He's 32. Dre Crowder, 33. I mean, the age factor aside, because being an experienced team is never a bad thing, but it's also the lack of depth that the Bucks possess. And while I think everyone will agree that Lillard is by far a better player than Drew Holiday, Holiday's defense and his overall professionalism and leadership is going to be greatly missed on that team. So I have a hard time saying that this team is a shoo-in to win the title, and if things don't really work out, say they get bounced again early in the playoffs, what does that mean for the future of Giannis, who's going to look around and see that he's got a lot of older players that they're currently building around, Do I see a viable shot at winning the title? And then also for the Bucks, who are now locked into this long-term contract with Damian Lillard, where he's going to be making over $63 million by the time he's 36 years old. The other storyline I always love as we go through the NBA season: who are the blow-it-up candidates? Meaning which teams, as we get near the trade deadline, depending on how they perform, are going to be blowing up their roster and triggering a rebuild. I'll start with the Bulls, because as much as I want the Bulls to always do well and keep pushing to win, there does come a point where trying to make something work that isn't going to work needs to be put to rest. And that most certainly is the case for the Bulls this season. If the Bulls do poorly, say they're 4 or 5 games below 500 come February, there's no question that they should blow up this roster. Trade their best players, go on a fire sale for future assets, draft picks, and start over. Now, for the record, I don't actually think that's going to be the case, because I think the Bulls will be better than most people think. But if the Bulls do bomb and just have a repeat of last year, or even worse, yeah, it's time to call it quits and throw in the towel in this group. The Sixers could also very well be a blow-it-up candidate by the trade deadline. If Harden gets moved and the Sixers play poorly, you could see it trending in that direction. Now, I want to be clear, the only way the Sixers would blow it up is if Joel Embiid gets frustrated and asks out in a trade. Otherwise, as long as the Sixers have Embiid, and Embiid wants to be there, they're not going to do anything drastic to gut this team. But if Embiid asks out, and they know they have to trade him, and with Tobias Harris's contract expiring, yeah, they're going to tear it all down and start the process over. 2 more blow-it-up candidates, these also coming in the Eastern Conference, are the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors. I would say the Raptors are more likely to blow it up just because they didn't do well last year. They lost Van Fleet in free agency. Siakam's contract is expiring. OG Anunoby, who has been in trade rumors for a while now, he's got a player option after the season. Gary Trent Jr. is also an expiring contract. I mean, if it's trending like they're not going to be making the playoffs yet again by the trade deadline, then yeah, you're likely going to see Siakam in a host of trade rumors before he becomes a free agent in the summer. And if you're moving on from Siakam, you're probably going to be going down a path of a rebuild and starting over. For the Hawks, a lot of it is dependent on Trey Young. There were some rumors floating around that Trey Young wasn't happy in Atlanta, or that he may ask out in a trade, which I don't believe are true. But if at some point during this season, the Hawks just kind of stay mid, they hover around 500 like they did all of last season, I could see Trey Young wanting to explore other options and request a trade, which would be a domino effect in this team starting over and looking to rebuild. Because even with Trey and the rest of the roster that they have, they're not very good. And given they gave up a lot of their future to get DeJounte Murray, if they don't see a path to contention, it might be best served to try and acquire a lot of their future picks back, which they could do so by trading Trey Young. As far as other storylines, I mean, you also have the potential last dance of the Warriors and Lakers, more so the Warriors because it's not like the current core of the Lakers have been together for that long. But for the Warriors, I mean, a lot of us thought this past season was going to be their last go-around with Draymond Green's contract expiring, him punching Jordan Poole, and then the Warriors giving Poole that fat extension. It looked like they were going to prioritize Poole over Draymond Green. And then they pivoted after Poole played like garbage in the playoffs, and they decided to move him instead. But this season, the core 3 of Steph, Klay, and Draymond Green, it's likely going to be their last. Yeah, Steph and Draymond are under contract for long term, but Klay Thompson, he's going to be playing in the final year of his deal. Reports are saying both sides are far apart on an extension, and he'll likely hit free agency in 2024. Doesn't mean they can't re-sign him, but I think this is likely going to be Klay's last season with the Warriors. I've said before, but I actually think the Warriors are going to struggle more than people think and likely face a fair amount of injuries throughout the year. And if they do struggle, it's going to be harder then to justify bringing back an aging Klay Thompson even on a short-term deal. And then for the Lakers, I don't really think you can call it a last dance, but more so, is it the end of LeBron James? LeBron has already said he's going wherever his son Bronny is drafted, which is presumably in this upcoming draft in 2024. But it's also not out of the realm of possibility that the Lakers try and trade into the draft to get Bronny and to get LeBron to stay, even if it's only for one more season. And then, of course, there's also the possibility that Bronny doesn't declare for the draft, depending on the kind of year that he has at USC. But either way, LeBron, he's going to be 39 this season. He has a player option on the final year of his deal going into next season. Is this his last year with the Lakers? And if so, where do the Lakers go from there without Bron? Yeah, they still have Anthony Davis on a long-term contract, but he's always struggled to stay healthy. And as good as AD is, he's been one of the best players in the league. I just don't see him carrying a team like the Lakers. I don't see him being a viable number 1 option on a title team. And so it leads back to the storyline for the Lakers this season. Again, is it going to be the last year with LeBron? For the Warriors, is it the last dance and last opportunity to win a title? And actually, that really goes for the Lakers too. There are a lot of other storylines out there as well that will be talked about all season long. Is the Luka and Kyrie fit going to work? If the Mavs continue to underperform, is Luka going to be looking to get out of Dallas? What would that mean for the rest of the league? Is Zion finally going to be healthy? Or if he's not, do the Pelicans finally say, it's enough, let's trade him? The Boston Celtics, guess I didn't really talk about them. If they don't win the title, what does it mean for their future after making sizable moves to finally get them over the hump? And then, of course, Victor Wembanyama. All eyes are going to be on Wemby this year. The Spurs are probably going to be the most watched team this season on League Pass for me, aside from the Bulls, of course. But the headlines, the drama, all of it aside, I absolutely cannot wait for the season to start. Let me know some of the storylines you're excited to see for this upcoming year. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.